Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to the Jazz Confusion Power Hour. We're starting a bit late today, but I hope you're still all with us. And we have a phenomenal guest today. I'm really excited about. Um, as we try to bring you some of the top artists in the field of jazz and crossover jazz, smooth jazz, jazz R&B, jazz funk, jazz rock. And we're one of the few stations that play jazz 24/7. We have a library of over 60,000 songs per month that we rotate, so you never hear the same song twice. So I want to welcome everybody again to the Power Hour, and I want to welcome our very special guest. Today's guest is Brian Culbertson. Brian is kind of an amazing individual because not only is he an incredible musician, incredible artist, but he's a songwriter. He does his own stage management. He conducts two festivals. He's a multi-instrumentalist. He's had at least 20 singles in the top 10 on Billboard over the years, and he just does everything. He's really what today is really required. He's his own A&R person. He manufactures his brand, and that's something that a lot of artists have difficulty doing, and he's just exceptional at it. And he's just an extraordinary artist. So let me would bring him on without any further ado. Brian, welcome.
Thanks, Mel. Good to be on, man.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Like I said, I'm really pleased to have you on because you represent to me not just, I'm not blowing smoke. I'm sincere about this. You're a great artist, but you also are a great businessman. And you really understand the changing nature of the music industry as well, if not better than anybody I know. So, I want I want you to let fans know that you just don't get up on stage and sing and play instruments. It doesn't work that way.
Not so much.
Yeah. So, I want to just let them know exactly, all the work and dedication you put in to create a really exceptional product time after time. So, let me start off by asking my first typical question.
Sure.
What's top of mind today? What's on your mind these days about what you're doing and music and what's going on?
Well, for today, and every day is a little bit different, I'm in tour prep mode. So what that means for me is we're starting rehearsals in about a month. And so prior to all the band rehearsals, once we all get together, I'm making sure that each one of the musicians knows exactly what parts they're supposed to play and this and that. And I really have to dictate that in advance so that when we do get together day one, we kind of have a good idea of what everyone's doing. So today I'm actually programming a lot of the keyboard parts for one of the auxiliary keyboard players that's going to be on our tour. And the reason why I'm programming it is because I know exactly what sounds that I used on the albums. And I want him to play those exact sounds from the records on this tour so that, in the live setting, there's a lot of similarity from the album in the live show. Of course, we're going to change the arrangements up and it'll be live drums and everyone's going to be playing live. I never use tracks or computers. But I got to pre-program all that stuff. So that's top of mind for me today.
Well,
Something else.
You're your own music director, obviously, too. You do all your own charting and scoring. You do it all yourself.
I do. Yeah. I like to work. I like to collaborate with my drummer. We get together months in advance and just kind of talk over, hey, what songs you think will be cool in this show? So it's definitely a collaboration too, but bottom line, most of the, pre-programmed stuff is like, there's no one else that can really do it because I know exactly what it should be. So.
Right. So, okay. So, and you do this virtually with band members?
No, I'm actually getting together. So I'm working on these programs right now. And then in a couple days, the guy's actually coming over and I have to physically show him, okay, here's this one part. because he may be triggering just like a sample, a sound, and okay, it's on this note. It's not like exactly like playing just a piano part, so it's a little more complicated.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Do all your band members live in the area, or
Not everybody. No,
Yeah.
one of the keyboard player lives in LA, so we're gonna. He plays more of the Fender Rhodes, I guess the meat of the backup keyboard parts. So that's Eddie, and Walter does live in Chicago, so he's going to be triggering all these extra sound effects and sounds. So
Gotcha.
Got to come over because I got to show him that it's very particular. So, but it's exciting and it's fun, and I like it because I'm getting the real sounds from the album live on stage.
Yeah, that's really unusual too. That's something that doesn't happen that often.
Yeah.
A lot of times people are disappointed because they know a song that they actually sing,
right?
And then they don't hear it the same way live. So, that's a lot of work. So, well, let's go back to the beginning, and I want to talk about your early development. You came from a home where your dad was not only a music director at a public school, but he was a jazz aficionado, and your mom was a classical pianist. Did you have a choice not to be a musician?
Well, there was always a choice, but there was no choice in starting piano lessons at 8 years old. You're taking piano lessons. And I think, a lot of kids are in those similar households where you got to take piano lessons or violin lessons or whatever it is. And me, like many other kids, couldn't stand it, hated it. I'd rather be out playing with the other kids in the neighborhood. Yeah, exactly. So for me, it was, I didn't love it, but, eventually you realize, oh, well, I guess that was good to know. Because once I was able to go to some other studios, I was able to visit like some guy's home studio when I was about 12 years old. That's what really sparked it for me, seeing all the gear and the keyboards and a drum machine and the multi-track recorder. I was like, ooh, what? That's how it works? This is amazing. So,
Yeah, again, I hope my information is accurate. But by the time you were 12, you had migrated to 3 different instruments already. Am I correct?
1, 2, 3, technically 4, I guess.
4?
Yeah.
How did the progression emerge? Like, how did you know which one you wanted to do next?
Yeah, so piano was first. The following year, I got excited. Every time I went and saw bands play, I was watching the drummer. So I was like, hey, I want to play drums too. So got a beat up old drum set it up in the basement, and I found one of the kids in high school was teaching me drum lessons. So I was just trying to play along with my favorite records. Earth, Wind and Fire or Toto, Chicago, these bands. And the following year, I wanted to join the school band, 5th grade band. And so in those bands, it was all wind instruments. So as they do, they lay out all the instruments and you just try them all and see whatever feels good. And for some reason, trombone just felt natural to me. Don't ask me why. I could just sort of play it. I had a good tone immediately. Unlike saxophone, I couldn't even I was squawking, So that's how I started trombone, just by joining the band. And then in junior high school, the jazz ensemble, they were in need of a bass player. I wanted to play this song, Chameleon. And I was like, oh, I'll try it. You're 12. You have no fears in the world. So, yeah, sure, I'll try it. So I got a bass and got a bass book and started taking bass lessons. So that's kind of how it all worked.
Yeah, so it was really serendipitous. A lot of it wasn't planned.
Yeah, not at all. No.
Yeah. I think that's really quite incredible. Now, I also know from reading about you that and you just kind of touched on it briefly. You listen to so many different musical genres.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Tower of Power, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Yeah.
For most kids, they choose one. why were you so interested in so many musical genres? How did that
Well,
happen? Is that your
I must
family?
yeah, I must admit early on I was definitely more narrow listening. My real love of music, when I was really getting into it, was more that fusion jazz fusion,
Yeah,
early contemporary jazz. So my favorite records were like the David Sanborn albums of the 80s.
yeah,
Man, I couldn't get enough of that, produced by Marcus Miller. I studied those records so much and would try to recreate. I think a lot of producers early on, when they're learning, they try to recreate their favorite albums by transcribing it and trying to, okay, what does that drum sound? Let me try to program that. Oh, this bass part is doing this. So I really did that with a lot of those records. And it wasn't until I got to college that I sort of broadened my listening to classical, to more pop. A lot of younger jazz students can be snobbish in what they listen to. I'm sure you know this. Oh man, if it ain't jazz, it's not good. That kind of. And so, I got into college. I'm like, yeah, that's dumb. Let me check it all out. So now I'm even more broad now than I ever was. I like to check everything out. So.
I just had on Curtis Harmon from Pieces of a Dream.
Okay, yeah.
Because Pieces are friends of mine for quite a long time, and he pretty much was saying the same thing that he, in order for him to play drums, he had to first emulate with a great drummer that he really loved.
Yeah.
Then he got bored, and he started moving into other things, and and I find the same thing with James Lloyd from Pieces too, and some other artists I've had on, that they seem to the ones that are really good and special, like you, that, you get bored in one way, and it doesn't take long, so you're off and running all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why a lot of my records, you'll not really hear the same record from me, because I'm always, okay, what's a new fresh sound that people haven't heard? This is what I'm thinking about, namely for myself.
Yeah, I want to get to that a little later in our discussion, because there's something important going on there. And you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think music has become more homogenized. It used to be much more diverse, and urban radio is kind of narrow. And it's hard to find, all of those different, genres of music and subgenres.
Oh, sure.
So,
well, I mean, it used to be traditional terrestrial FM radio would play all kinds of stuff.
Exactly.
And now it's just extremely narrow. If it doesn't fit this exact sound, you don't get on the playlist. And that's with everything. So it's all these musical niches.
No,
So you're exactly right.
I was talking to a couple of people I know, Sheryl Crow and Paul Simon, and they're kind of disgusted with the way things have been compressed and on the airwaves in particular. And streaming, and we'll get to that more a little bit later. What I want to talk about is some of the really cool things that you have done, and two aspects. One is the hang.
Okay.
Because I know it's not the same, but Mesa, I love Mesa. Mesa has Mesa's Kitchen.
Of course.
And he started that during the pandemic, just like you started the hang. And so I want you to talk about that and talk about the trilogy, because those are so intimately related, the hang and the trilogy.
Yeah.
So go ahead, let us talk about it.
Sure. Well, I mean, like a lot of artists in years past, right when they launched the beta version of Facebook Live, I was like, hey, what is this? Let me check it out. So I would just randomly go live on a Friday night. And this was going back to 2016, maybe.
Wow. Okay.
So whenever I was home or in the studio on a Friday, which was kind of rare because I would always be on tour, I would just say, hey, I'm live in the studio. What's going on? I just talk about what was happening, what I was working on. And so fast forward to March of 2020, I was like, uh-oh, all tours canceled. What do we do now? So I immediately decided, hey, let me just go live every Friday night. And the first month, during that, I guess it was April, I was just still using my iPhone, which everybody was using.
Right.
And I was progressively getting annoyed by mono audio, because that was just a limitation of using your phone. And I'm like, man, if I'm going to do a music show, I at least want stereo audio. Hello.
Yeah.
So you start Googling, how do you do this? And so I realized, okay, for me to go down that road, I'm going to have to really dive down this rabbit hole of how do you stream like a pro? And so I realized a lot of the gamers were already doing this. And so I was seeing what gear they were using, how do you do this? So during the month of April, I geared up and was driving all over Chicagoland trying to buy this piece of gear, that piece of gear, because everything was sold out online.
Yeah.
Cameras, all the stuff that we're using.
Yeah.
So I finally compiled it all in mid-May of 2020. I was like, hey, launching a real show, internet show, multicam, stereo audio. What?
Yeah.
And every week it just kind of grew and grew and grew as I learned more of the tech side of things, because I was by myself, figuring it out.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it seems like you do that a lot. You're by yourself figuring it out.
Yeah.
So,
no one else is here, so you got to just do it.
Yeah. Talk about the trilogy and talk about how they intersect with the Hang as you kept developing the Hang.
Sure. So after a few months of streaming only, and to rewind, I had just released an album called 20, the Double X album.
Yeah. Love
April of 2020, which I was supposed to be on this 20 tour.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really into writing creative mode at that time. I was just focusing on streaming. But after a few months, on some of the Monday night and Wednesday night shows, because I was streaming 3 nights a week, right?
Yep.
Not just Fridays. So some of the Monday and Wednesdays, I was like, hey, maybe let me just start showing you guys how I create a song from scratch. And so that's what I did. And I started writing all these songs. And before I knew it, I had almost 30 songs that I had written while people were watching the live stream and giving comments down the side. So I kind of knew what people were feeling immediately. And this was something brand new for me. Normally when you're writing songs, it's a very, introverted thing, right? Just you, or unless you're co-writing, of course. But for me, a lot of the times it's just me sitting here at the keyboard, got my sounds, and we go with it. But all of a sudden, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I got thousands of people watching while I'm trying to do it live and getting the real-time feedback on the chat on the side. And so that was really cool for me and for the fans, I think, because they didn't know how to write a song. They didn't know what the process was. So I'm just kind of trying to explain it step by step. And I think a lot of my fans now kind of, I think, appreciate the whole process much more, knowing, what really goes into it. So, and that's how the trilogy was born.
And what was the first song that came out of that after the collaboration with fans?
I don't know if I even remember what the order was, because they were just all kind of going, back and forth. I remember the last song, Sandcastles.
Yes. Okay.
I was like, oh, I need one more song. I had 29 songs, and I knew I wanted to kind of keep it similar. So each song or each record of the 3 have 10 tracks. So I was like, all right, I got 29. I need one more song. So I remember distinctively starting that one and how that came together, and wrote the entire song in this 1 hour live stream. Pretty great.
I have a kind of a favorite, and I wanted to see if you can talk about it. Dance with Me Tonight.
Oh yeah.
How do you start writing? You're a multi-instrumentalist, and I've talked to multi-instrumentalists who are songwriters.
Okay.
And they all start with the premise that they hear a sound first. They have just a sound. So how do you begin to approach a song like "Dance with Me Tonight"? How does it start?
Well, that one started with a pulsating pad sound. And I was just scrolling through different sounds. And so this pad sound came up, and I hit a chord, and just kind of started, this pulsating, and it reminded me of a lot of the EDM stuff, dance music.
Yep.
And so immediately I just lay that in to Logic. I use Logic as a sequencer of the program. And so then I added a kick drum underneath it, a dance 4 on the floor, do, boom, boom, boom. And from there, just, you just layer one part at a time. And that's really how I do it. And so I found all these percussion loops, so I'd lay that in. But for that particular song, I started with loops, but then I went back and re-recorded them with real percussion so that it sounded real and live. So a lot of times I will use a loop in the beginning just to get the songwriting, faster. And then once I'm in Pro Tools and recording all the live instruments, I replace a lot of the initial drum loop or percussion loop sounds with real instruments.
So Brian, as a song progresses, do you have a vision, or is it more mysterious and emergent?
It slowly emerges.
Yeah. So you don't know what the end you don't know the end result.
Nope.
It's not there. Yeah.
I do not know.
Yeah.
I just have to add one part at a time. And a lot of times for me, the last thing is the piano melody on top.
Oh, okay.
So I'm creating this whole track and this soundscape of oral sensations, right? Okay, we got the pad going, we got the drums going, we got percussion, and then sound effects are going. Okay, now this inspires me to write a melody. And so I'll just loop that whole track and then start playing my piano patch over it until I have this melody that I'm feeling. And then
I guess
I do is go out and record the real grand acoustic grand. That's the last step, and then we mix.
So I guess sometimes when you get to the end, it's never over anyway. Even though you get to the end, you still go back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So even if we're mixing, let's say all the recording is done and we're mixing, and I collaborate with my sound mixer, and I'm like, ooh, it'd be cool to add this. And so I'll record it real quick and then send to him because he's in Los Angeles. So we kind of mix virtually. There's great new tech that he can be working in his studio, and I could hear it exactly what he's doing in my studio.
That's great.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah. So how do you know when it's over?
That's easy. When I'm not annoyed by anything. Let's face it, as a producer, you're basically, it's whack-a-mole, right?
Yeah.
Damn it, that's not cool right there. This needs to be different, or it needs a cymbal roll to get into this section to create a whoosh. Okay, let's add that. Or man, I don't know about that one little line right there. That has turn that down. So it's basically anything that's annoying. Once that's all done, and you're like, oh, this is nice to listen to. Done.
What I really love about where this is going today is for a lot of fans and people that tune into our show to really understand the complexity of a song.
Sure.
It doesn't come full blown to the artist's mind and they just lay it out. It's a painstaking process. Now some songs come easier than others. Is there any song that you can remember that right away you knew you had it?
Well, I think we talked about it earlier, Sandcastles. Somehow, and I've talked to a lot of artists many times, the last song that they end up writing or producing goes very fast and is like a hit. I don't know why. I was talking to Bobby Caldwell. I was like, oh, man, I remember back in the day, the label's like, yeah, you need one more song. And then he wrote, and we're like, what? It's like that. So I'm not comparing Sandcastles to that song, of course, but I'm just saying this song was probably the quickest song and is the current single, which is on radio for me right now, which is doing very well. So I don't know what it is. It's a weird thing.
Rod Stewart said one time one of his first big successes, his album was finished and he just felt it needed one more song. So he wrote Maggie May.
Well,
and the producers didn't want it. He said that song doesn't go anywhere, and he insisted. He said it
Never
needs
know.
this. You just don't know.
Never know.
It's it's always kind of a guess.
Yeah.
So okay, we're talking about being a multi-instrumentalist, all the different things you do, and one of the people I think about when I think about you is David Foster,
Okay.
and is David? He was one of your influences. Is that true?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Early on, I was so into one of my favorite records was Chicago 17,
Yeah.
which was produced by David. And what's funny, the ironic thing was many of the diehard Chicago fans from early on hated that record.
Hated it. Yep.
They thought he ruined the band. But I don't know. I guess I was at an age coming up that I was into the, that 80s sound. I was a teenager, whatever. And I was like, man, I thought it was brilliant. So, you never know. So, and he was doing a lot of film scores as well. So I was into the melodies. I was always gravitating towards strong melodies. That's why every time I'm working on a song, I really, really try to craft a hook melody that can grab you. You can instantly, hopefully, sing along with, or So I'm always thinking about that.
Yeah, the old expression of music: "Don't bore us, get to the chorus."
There it is.
Yeah. So it's the melody. When people start singing your music, you got it right.
Sure, especially instrumental, because there's no lyrics to kind of grab onto. So to me, the melody even has to be stronger when it is instrumental.
Yeah. So in some of your music, of course, you have vocals.
Sure.
How do you decide when you want to do a vocal?
Yeah. It is. That is an interesting question. I think it comes down to when I'm starting a record. A lot of times I do have an idea of, hey, what direction is this album going? Is it more of an R&B record? Is it more of a jazz record? Is it more where are we going? And that will help decide. Okay, you know what? Maybe there needs to be 2 or 3 vocals on it. For the 20 album, I wanted it to be a mix. I was like, what do I do for 20? Let me just throw it all in. It was a kitchen sink album, at least for me.
Yeah.
Therefore, there are several vocals, not 100%, of course. Maybe it was about 30%. So I knew I wanted those. So I would start with a track, and a track sometimes I'll start hearing a singer over the top of it.
Okay.
Just out of the blue. And so then I'm like, well, what singer? Who? So then particular vocals, timbres come to mind. Okay, a male vocal. Well, a guy that's more like this, or you know what I mean? For one of the songs, I was like, this is more of a gospel meets Stevie Higher Ground kind of song, but I want a higher vocal. So I ended up calling Avery Sunshine for that.
Okay.
And so we collaborated on the melody and lyric for that one after I had already had the track. I played her the track, say, hey, do you think you could do something on this? She's like, yeah.
Yeah. And she did.
It's always a little bit different.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to ask you as a next question, next follow-up. You've done a lot of collaborations. Do you think about collaborating first, or does that come after you've begun to work on a song or a project?
It has actually happened both ways. So for that song, it was, I just started the track with this other guy. We were just kind of working on the instrumental track. And then the idea came to make it a vocal. On, let's say, an older song of mine, let's say Skies Wide Open, which was, that was on the R&B charts for a while. We knew early on this needed to be a vocal. So we had contacted Avant artists. And we literally got together, producer Rex Rideout and I started the track, and then Avant came over like a day later, and we really, really formed it together, the three of us. So we knew early on for that one. But then there was another song that was on the R&B charts a lot. It was actually even more popular as guys. A song called "You're My Music," which features Noel Gourdin. Yeah. And that one initially was going to be an interlude
Huh.
on that particular, on the Dreams album. And I had recorded muted trumpet myself. And I was like, oh man, this is kind of a cool vibe. I was just like jamming a little bit. It's going to be a 2.5-minute interlude on that album. And then you know what it was? I heard Noel had a song on radio at that particular time, and I heard it, and it sparked this idea. Maybe I should work with him. So I got together with Lewis, and then we wrote this song, and then Noel came over. And so again, it's very, very different. It happens all kinds of different ways.
Yeah. But I think in general, the creative process, collaboration, choice of instrumentation, tempos, it's a mysterious process. You don't sit down formulaically and lay it out. It's emergent, and and the collaborations, the additives to the music emerge as you go along. And that's just, it's just a fun process, I guess, for you. The lights go on suddenly.
Well, it can be fun and also nerve-wracking if you're like, I don't know where this one's going. I'm not quite sure. There was one particular song on the 20 album, actually track 1, a song called Get Up. And that was a very experimental track for me. I just kept adding things, not knowing where it was even going. I didn't even have a melody. I was in LA recording. I think I added a bass part and percussion, and I just tell them, just play and let's see where this goes. So, and then it ended up being that. So one part at a time, I was just kind of throwing it out to different musicians, and I just let it naturally evolve. I didn't necessarily have a full vision for that particular song, and yet other songs I do. So again, I don't know. There's no,
Brian,
I tell a young musician, hey, here's how you do it. Because I just sort of like let it fly, man.
You can tell them, here's how you don't do it.
Well, sure.
It sounds like when you're composing, and now you have a series of songs that's going to be an LP.
Yeah.
At what point does your brain say, oops, I got to remember the commercial aspects?
I mean, that's always sort of in there. However, I think I'm less and less thinking about that these days, especially with Trilogy. There's not necessarily a slam dunk single to me, because in general, most of the Trilogy is more down tempo. Singles at least on jazz radio, are definitely more up tempo driving.
Yes.
And so to me, I was just focused more on creating a musical escape for 3 hours. No, it's almost a 3-hour playing time, actually, or 2:45, and less about, hey, how's this going to sell? I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just trying to make something that I was interested in personally, and that my hardcore fans were passionate about too.
Talk about Trilogy a little bit. Where did the inspiration come from? The idea, the color, the different colors,
Well, I had written a lot of the songs before I even had the concept of the Trilogy. And like I said earlier, I had written, way more than an album's worth. So I had about 17, 18, 19 songs. And I started realizing they were falling into 3 emotional categories. They were all in a similar sonic palette, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
However, one song was clearly more on the sensual side. And then the next song was more melancholic. And then, this song is happier. So that's, they sort of just were falling into these 3 categories. And so that's when it really dawned on me, hey, maybe I make 3 albums, and each album have a color that represents these emotions. Red being passion. The Blue album, part 2, that more sad, introspective, making you think, melancholic music. blue. That color makes sense, right?
Yeah, sure.
And then the white is the hopeful, uplifting songs. So it really just emerged after I had a lot of the songs. Didn't have a concept in mind prior to that.
So it didn't emerge from a personal relationship. It emerged.
Nope.
It emerged from the tonality of the music, really.
It did, yeah. And let's face it, any music we write is personal anyway. So it's all personal, but not necessarily a specific event.
Right, but you didn't write the songs thinking about relationships. It just emerged when you started to look at, the content of each. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you really break it down, the whole trilogy can be almost an arc of a long-term relationship. Let's think about it. The beginning of that relationship, we always say is hot and steamy, right? The lustful side of whatever. But then, middle of that relationship, it could be rocky.
Here come the kids.
I mean, and then the end, and they lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
So you can look at it as that as well. So, which I think is kind of interesting.
It is. I mean, the whole concept of the trilogy. I found it just. You mentioned the word escape, and I found it a great escape.
Oh yeah, cool.
It's just great to listen to, and it just takes you to different places all the
Absolutely.
time. And that's so that's what makes it so vibrant, I think, and so meaningful to fans too.
Mm.
So let's talk about a couple of things now. We started to touch on it. The music industry has gone through some just major changes since you began your musical career.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be, and I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but it was vinyl, radio, and record labels, and that was pretty much the path.
Yeah.
There wasn't much else, and then of course things started to evolve, and the internet started to change everything about music.
Yeah.
And so it went from analog to digital. It went from record labels to streaming. It went from A&R, where they would put you on tour. They would create your brand. They gave you music time in the studio, and suddenly you're on your own.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the direction that the music industry has gone in from the standpoint of the artist? Is it better because they have now free access, to be able to put their music out whenever they want to? Or how do you feel about the direction it's gone in throughout your career? Is it positive, negative? What's your thoughts?
Well, for me, when I was first starting out as a young artist, at that time, we're talking early 90s, like you said, there was no internet yet. Well, very infant.
Yeah.
We didn't use it. Didn't even have cell phones, I guess still had a pager.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, I wouldn't have known any other way to do it. I mean, that's really all there was, utilizing a label to get your music out there, to get it played on radio, to book gigs in the beginning. So I was very grateful to have the opportunity to even be with a label. As a 20-year-old, I mean, come on, I'm freaking out here, getting that phone call. I'm like, what? I'm in college, what? They never even met me in person, or let alone see me do a show. I had never done a show on a keyboard before. I was known around Chicago as a trombone player playing in horn sections, So this is just blowing my mind. So all of a sudden the record comes out and it starts blowing up on radio, my first record. And I think it peaked at number 2. And I was okay with that because who was number 1? Bob James. I was like, yeah, I'm all right with that. One of my idols there. So as things progress, years and years and years go by, the internet's coming up, all of a sudden, social media, YouTube, all these things that us as artists, we can access directly and have direct access to the fan base. this is something we never had before. There was always
Right.
this curtain, or wall,
Mhm.
big wall, separating. And so all of a sudden I can be tweeting with someone and they can ask questions directly. So, wow. I mean, it's a whole new world. Do I think it's better? I don't know. It's different. There's certain aspects that are amazing, certain aspects that are maybe not as good. So I think you just kind of go with the flow. The industry isn't going to bend to your whims. That's for damn sure. So you got to, hey, we're going over here now. You
Yeah.
better go with it, or else you're going to be left behind.
In crass terms, I know and you know the story. A lot of musicians never made much money from the record labels.
Right.
And now it's when you stream, you get 0.008 cents a stream.
Oh
So,
no, way less than that.
Well, I'm saying if once you hit the big time.
I think there's 4 zeros before a number kicks in there.
Yeah. Yes, you're absolutely right.
0.0008.
You're absolutely right.
127. Yeah, whatever.
No, so it's for any musician,
You got to do it in volume.
Yeah, but what kind of volume? You'd have 5 million hits to make a dime. And
you got to get billions.
Yeah, so for young musicians, touring is the only route. That's it. You have to be out there playing live. So you better have a good band, and you better have your act together. Because
in the beginning, that's hard too, because you're not getting much money at all. You're going to be an opening act.
That's right.
They're going to, we'll throw you a few dollars. So it's very difficult in the beginning of touring. So.
Yeah, well, that's why I was asking you. Whether it's better or worse for a young musician these days. Before they had less access. Now they have a lot of access with no cash. So they have day jobs, and it's really hard for musicians to migrate from that day job to being a full-time musician. I've had some really tremendous artists on my show, and and they've been out there for years, and they've been number one on Billboard, and they still have a day job.
Yeah,
it's so hard to monetize a career these days.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I my hat is off to you, because all the different things you do. Even doing your own staging, and it's amazing how you do that. And in that sense, that's what young musicians have to look at. It's a multiverse. You no longer can exist, in narrow space. And
well, yeah, I tell young musicians, you got to learn so many things nowadays. You can't rely on a web designer. You can't rely on a video editor. You can't rely on a Photoshop editor. You know what? Learn them. Learn all these things yourself. There's the tools. Just go to YouTube. You can learn anything.
Yep. Yes.
So you learn how to stream, learn how to do this, because no one else is going to do it for you, or else you got to pay a lot of money for people and wait for them to do it. So
exactly.
You know what? You might as well learn it. Do it now, and it's just your time.
Yeah.
So I do as much as I can. Of course, I got to outsource here and there because I run out of time.
Yeah.
And I got a good team of people around me. My management team is amazing, and they have a lot of great people working for them. So you have to have that as well. You got to have a great support system. For sure.
Definitely. And that's the hard part.
Yeah.
You have to be able to know all the parts yourself, but then you have to be so good at constructing a team.
Yeah.
That is effective working together, because without the team, no matter what you do, it's just it's not going to come to fruition. So again, there's so many parts to learn now. You just can't learn music and take music theory. It's not going to work. And so it's it's just a whole different world out there right now. So
I got a manager, I got a day-to-day manager, I got a business manager who's money management, and then there's the agency who's the booking. They book the shows. Right. Then there's the publisher you got to deal with. It's just endless.
Yeah.
Oh, and then the lawyer.
Don't forget the accountant and the publicist.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, there's the merch manager, but
that's right.
It's Oh, tour manager, production manager. So that's for the tour. I mean, it's a lot of people.
So look, you also do festivals. You created two festivals, one in Cali, one in Chicago. You know,
Yeah.
how how do you manage all this? How do you manage the touring and manage the recording and manage the writing and managing the team and managing the fest? I mean, how do you do it, Brian? I mean, how would you explain it to anybody?
Again, it's having great people around you that you trust. So obviously we've been doing Napa Valley Jazz Getaway. We're in our 10th year. So at this point, you know, the people helping to run the festival, they know what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm definitely more top line. Okay, what are all the artists we want to invite? You know,
Right.
I'm not dealing with the waste management. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm not doing that stuff. I'm not making sure the napkins are correct. You know,
Yeah.
early on I was, but you know, once you set, here's the course. This is where we're going. This is how it's running. Eventually, you can let it kind of do its thing, and everyone knows what they're supposed to do. And then I can focus on the overall creative of what songs are we going to do, with who's sitting in with whom. These are things that are fun to me. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about the concert side when you're on tour.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do you define a tour? In other words, you know, where are you going? Who are you going to be performing in front of?
Right.
You know, how do you do that?
Well, it starts from whatever album you're kind of promoting. So this year we're clearly going to be doing the trilogy tour.
Right.
Even though I released the albums last year, I felt that I wanted to give a little time for people to digest all that music. It's a lot of music, and live with it before we headed out on the tour. So that one thing I hate doing is immediately playing all the brand new music.
Yeah.
And half the audiences, or more than half the audience, has never even heard it. And they're like, huh? I want to hear the songs that I know. So all last year, I was just doing kind of a greatest hit show. You know, I had this big stage production. So this year now we're going out and doing the trilogy tour, focusing way more on these songs. So it'll still be about only half of the music, but still, that's kind of a lot. You know, half the music all new. And hopefully enough people will have at least checked it out or streamed it once. They'll be sort of familiar with it. So with that said, it comes down to, okay, what instrumentation do you need to properly pull off these particular songs? Okay, I want to focus on these songs. Who do I need in the band? You know, of course, I have my core guys that have been with me a long time. But I have a couple additions that I'm bringing out this year. An extra keyboard player, like I said early on in the show, who's going to be triggering all these cool sounds that I utilized over the trilogy. He's also a great vocalist, so he can sing along as well. Also, there's a lot of percussion all over the trilogy that's adding all this extra flavor. So I decided to bring a percussionist on this particular tour. And then one thing I eliminated, if you listen to the entire trilogy, there's zero saxophone. No sax.
Wow. Yeah, you know, I didn't think of that.
No sax on this tour. So, you know, you can't just keep adding people. I couldn't afford it. So, okay, well, if I add this person, okay, I don't need this now. So that's where we're going.
I never thought of that, about the lack of sax.
Right.
How did that happen?
It just didn't seem to fit the sonic direction.
Wow.
You know, this is more whatever that was. And to me, adding a saxophone sonically to those albums, I don't know, it just didn't feel right to me. So I didn't even want to hear sax in there because it takes your mind in a different place.
Yes, it does.
I wanted to stay, okay, this is a very specific, again, palette of sounds. And I just want to stay there. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's, you know, I've listened to the trilogy several times, and when you said it, it occurred to me there's no sax.
You didn't miss it, did you?
No, I didn't.
Exactly. Yeah.
I didn't. And that's, you know, That's
'Cause in a
amazing.
way, to me, it would have stuck out as not really working or fitting musically for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of trumpet.
Yes, yes, there is.
So of
But
course,
no
Patrick
sax.
Stewart, the great trumpeter, will be on our tour to play all those parts. So
Terrific. That's great.
pretty cool.
One of the things, we talked about your collaborations over the years, and you've had Bootsy Collin and Larry Graham and Ray Parker Jr. and David Walker, and I mean, I can go on and on with all the collaborations you've done. At this stage of your career, who would you really like to collaborate with if you had your bucket list that you never have before? Who would that be? Is there anybody that comes to mind?
I mean, there's a million people, but right now I think it just comes down to what am I feeling in the moment. I'm a very reactionary songwriter, producer. I have to just, what am I feeling right now? And I just start writing. And if a particular artist comes to mind, then I'll try to reach out. I would love to work with, let's just throw out a million names. Sade, Sting, Charlie Wilson, Stevie Wonder. I mean, you could go on and on and on and on. But if I don't have an album or a song that makes sense for this particular person, what's the point? You're just doing it to do it.
You just reminded me of something. I thought I'd mention to you. I think you'll find it interesting. I had Larry Dodson on, who replaced, when the Bar-Kays had that tragedy, and they reformed, and Larry Dodson became the lead singer. They had 20 songs that were number 2, but never one that was number 1 on Billboard. And I said to him, why? And he said, Michael Jackson.
There you go.
And he said, if it wasn't for Michael Jackson, we probably would have had 20 number 1 hits, But, and so he said, the thing, and the reason I'm bringing it up, he said, the thing we should have done is collaborate with Michael Jackson.
Well, there it is.
Yeah. It's just funny how sometimes things just happen that you have no control over.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So
you can never count on. If you're writing a song, oh man, this is a smash number 1 hit. Yeah, you never know. You never know.
Since you've traveled over the years in your career, where do you see yourself heading in the next 3 years? Do you see anything? I heard you did mention that you're much less focused, in your music on commercial success. And although I'm not saying it's not important, but you're writing probably more and more for yourself. Is that part of a legacy, that's in your mind at this point? Or, not that I'm trying to make you seem like you're over the hill by any means, but, where do you see yourself going?
I just think I'm writing for, you say for myself, but it's really about having authenticity to your creations, and I'm not trying to chase something else that's maybe popular at the moment. I've never really wanted to do that. I just want to make some music that I think is personally interesting, and hopeful that the core fan base is kind of coming along for the ride. And for the most part, they love it. They don't know what's coming up next for me, and it's kind of exciting for everyone, I think. Do I lose some people here and there? Sure. I don't know. Somebody says, oh man, I really just love your slow jams and I hate your funk albums. I'm like, all right, well, hey, it's some for everything. And then some people are like, man, I wish you would do more funk. And then these slow things, I don't know about so you know what? Sure. Okay, well then listen to that funk album that I did, and I'm sure I'll go back and do another one like that when the inspiration strikes.
Yeah,
3 years from here, couldn't tell you. Don't know.
Oh no. Okay.
Keep writing, and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, smooth jazz was so dominant for so long, and now you can't even find a station that plays smooth jazz anymore. So, you have to you can't predict in a sense where your music's going to go to. You know, one of the things I look at is who are the young artists that to me represent something exciting. John Batiste is one of those artists to me.
Okay.
I don't know how you feel about, you know, the fact, you know, he's so good at sampling some of that old music and updating it.
Yeah.
You know, and there's not too many artists like that. You know, Bruno Mars did it.
Sure.
You know, too. You know, so you know, in terms of the direction of music, you know, who would you point to in your mind that's young, that's doing something exciting right now?
I mean, you mentioned Bruno, you know, him and Anderson .Paak, you know, doing the Silk Sonic. And that's obviously a cool sound.
Yeah.
Just completely retro though.
Yep.
So it's taking that retro and mixing it with the new. So, you know, to an extent that has always sort of been done a little bit. Listen to Amy Winehouse records, you know, obviously very retro, mixed with that with her thing. So, you know, to answer your question, I don't know if there's anybody necessarily doing anything that I'm fully like, oh my God, I've never heard this before.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's always, it's just it's a mix of what has come before and putting some new sounds in it. And I think that's where my music is as well. You know, I'm not reinventing anything. I'm just taking what's been there and okay, well, now we're going to morph over here a little bit. But there's the bottom line is there's 5 billion artists out there these days, all making music. And so you gotta start searching for music. And I think one of the streaming things, the good thing about streaming is it's easier to me to discover new artists because you were listening to this, the whole, you know, algorithm. Hey, you may also like this person.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a cool thing that has come out with the you know, the streaming game. So I dig that.
Is there anybody you're listening to you know, these days?
Right now, I'm into this group Cannons.
I don't know them.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's millions of artists out there. It's just like whoever you're checking out. You know, I think I might have been listening to Sirius XM Chill, you know, that channel.
Yeah.
And they came on. I was like, "Whoa, that's a cool song." And then you look them up, and oh man, this record's a little bit unique. I'm digging this right now. So from there, you know, then you discover other people. So.
Yeah, you know, one of my friends,
yeah,
you know, Christian D. Masonis, who did Hispanica.
Oh, okay.
You know? Yeah. And you had that, you featured that on one of your
I
shows.
remember, yeah.
It was like one of the songs of the year for you. Yeah. And you know, Christian's been at it for a long time, and he you know, he got Bob James to play on his Hispanica song.
Right.
And again, it totally freaked him out. Just like when you said in your 20s you got a record label.
Yeah.
You know, he mentioned to some DJ in the UK, you know, boy, you know, I have this song. I'd really love to get Bob James. Next thing you know, the DJ knew Bob James. Honest. And that's how it happened.
Yeah.
The song went to Bob James. He said, "Hey, this is cool. I'll do it."
Wow.
You know, so you never know what's going to emerge, and you know, you have to keep your ear to the ground and just you know see what's going on. And Chill is a great place to go to kind of find, you know, new vibes and new songs.
Yeah.
You know, so, well, Brian, I appreciate you being on so much. I've really enjoyed it, and I learned so much from you today.
Oh,
you know?
Thanks, man. I appreciate you having me on, and it's always fun to talk about, you know, getting under the hood a little bit. That's cool.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to, you know, tell fans about that they should be looking for coming up in different locations or anything?
I mean, bottom line for me, it's we're going to be all over the states the rest of this year. We start let's see, March 22nd. Start in Providence, Rhode Island. Do the whole Northeast for a few weeks, including the legendary Apollo Theater.
Yes, I know
you. Very excited about that show. Never been there. Everyone's like, "Ooh," buzzing on that one. So if you're in the area, come on up. That's I believe April 6th. I want to say Thursday night.
You know, look, I'm going to tell you something about brief about my life.
Yeah.
When I was 10 years old, I was living in the cloistered shelter of Long Island.
Okay.
And I had a friend whose father was very young, and he told my mother he was taking us to the movies, and he took us to the Apollo Theater when I was 10 years old.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, and you know, we were the only white dudes sitting in the audience at the time.
Yeah, yeah, nice.
And that was the great show that had everybody. You know, it had Buddy Holly, it had the Big Bopper, it had you know, Chuck Berry, and you know, I was at that show. It transformed my life.
Wow.
You know, I became so interested in music from that day on.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so you know, the
Cool.
Apollo is,
yeah,
it has memories for me to go back many years. You know, so
wow.
Yeah.
Well, this will be new for me, and we've been actually working on this particular show for many, many years, and finally we're able to just kind of work it out. So very excited about that. But of course, we'll be all over the place. I haven't even announced most of the dates because they're coming up later in May, September, October, November. So we're going to try to go as many places as possible. So
yeah, I may drive up to see you at the Apollo. I mean,
come on.
I haven't been there a long time.
Nice, nice.
That's a great gig. Okay, let me put this up for everybody to see. You know, people want to get a hold of you, Brian. I created a little slide.
Okay.
You can tell them about your social media sites and about management if they want to book you.
Sure. I mean, you know, the easiest place for me to get to everything would be just simply my website, brianculbertson.com. From there are links to all my, you know, social media accounts, the Hang website, the Jazz Getaway, for the Napa Valley Chicago Festival, and a new festival we're adding next year in New Orleans, actually.
Oh, wow. Oh,
very
great.
excited about that. So we're going to have a third Jazz Getaway. That's March of 2024. So lots going on. It's exciting.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, look, again, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show. And, you know, I'm sure all the people that tune into the Power Hour are just really pleased they have a chance to meet you and to learn a lot more about you than, you know, listening to your wonderful music. They can get a feel for how did this happen, you know, and that's the purpose of the show.
There you go. Appreciate it, Mel.
Wonderful. You have a terrific, you know, weekend coming up, and good luck with everything you're doing.
You too. Cheers, mate.
Thanks. So long, Brian.
Alrighty.